Hello, guys, girls, and everything else. This is another cargo pants video, and right now I'm going to show you. I pretty much like a simple guide to all races. Let's name our guy right now. For example, let's play on words. This will be our example guy. So let's call this guy example because example as a word is EXAMPL. You know, like example guy, but because it's GUI, and now let's just change it to gay. Example. Example gay. Example gay, yeah. Save this guy to a local folder. And run down all of the classes, which are probably the most important things you'll want. So I will probably try to do it in like release order, I do believe. So yeah, we got our. So yeah, first of all, alchemists. Alchemists are pretty weird class because they're martial classes, but they function like spellcasters. You can see all of the stuff they have. They have simple weapons, but also alchemical bombs. So let's start off like this. Their key ability score is intelligence, meaning you will have a lot of skills, pretty much. Um, you have a decent amount of hit points, and you have a decent amount of hit points. This is the average amount of hit points. You're also trained in perception, which is, fitting for a support because supports usually move later than faster. And you're both expert in fortitude and reflex, which is a standard for martial classes and just trained in will. So be careful of foes that can frighten you. You start off trained in crafting because alchemical stuff is a type of crafting, and you're trained in a number of additional skills equal to 3 plus your intelligence modifier, which is, which is pretty standard. You have all simple weapons, additionally all alchemical bombs and unarmed attacks, and you're trained in all the armor up to medium. So yeah, you can see you will probably try to min-max it so you have like so you have about 4 intelligence at the start, so you will have like 7 skills trained. And as I said, alchemists really quickly they use these things. It's actually in spells lists, but they're not spells. So let's say that you have Blight Bomb, and you have Infused Regions. So you're a mix of both spontaneous and prepared spellcasters. So, like a prepared spellcasters, you can at the start of your day just use Advanced Alchemy to give yourself 2. And see, you before had like 2 of these, and now you have 1. That you spontaneous spellcaster. You just want to cast a. You just want to get a specific thing. So then you use Quick Alchemy for that, and you gain 1. And you gain 1, but you get that one in the heat of the moment whenever you want. So hope that makes it pretty clear. As an alchemist, I think that the best feats that you can start with are either Quick Bomber or Foul Over. You probably will use bombs and stuff like that, but Quick Bomber is probably the most efficient one. Most DMs allow you to use quick bomber with other alchemical items, not only bombs. So you should focus on that. Bomber is, as you can see, it helps you with all of the bomb stuff. Cure Drone helps you with elixirs. Like antidote, it's still an elixir. Mutagenist helps you with mutagens, which are technically in the elixir section, at least that's last time I checked. In elixir section of alchemical items, and toxicologist helps you with all of the poisons and venoms. So yeah, as you can see, with bombs you have bombs with poisons, you have all of the poisons, but you don't have mutagens. Well, that's because some idiot, I think, decided to put stuff like elixir of life, which is a consumable elixir, and mutagen, both as elixirs, even though they have separate alchemist things. And that's not even like alchemist was late addition. Alchemist was one of the first classes ever made. So that's a thing that I don't really like. But remember, you will have pretty decent defense, and that's basic stuff for an alchemist that you can have. If you want my recommendations for weapons, then probably don't use weapons, just pull out your bombs and stuff like that as weapons. That's why you should pick quick bomber or bomber. And for defense, we'll probably start off with stats like you try to max out your intelligence, and then you either give like just dex, con, and wisdom. And then, if you're trying to do this, then the best one to start with would be probably leather armor. But if you want to sacrifice probably your wisdom for strength, then pick hide, that is a medium armor. But otherwise you should pick that one. So alchemist, once again in core. Second one is barbarian. As you can see, it has 12. Like a big number is 10. Oh yeah, it uses strength scale ability score, and it has 12, which is the biggest one in the game and the biggest health pool in the game, and only barbarian has it. So expert in perception. So yeah, barbarians will usually start the combat early, and then starts off with fortitude and will, which means that it will be a pretty good fighter, unless you're fighting an evocation wizard, usually, or someone that is focused on just energy blast. Trained in athletics, because most barbarians do athletic stuff, like throwing enemies off guard and stuff like that. Trained in number of skills equals 3, which is an average amount of skills. And you have weapons up to martial. The armor up to medium. So the most important thing, as you can see, is rage with barbarian. You deal 2 additional damage, but you have -1 to HP, AC, and cannot use actions with concentrate trait unless they have also a rage trait. But you get a bunch of temporary hit points, which is pretty good, I think. For classes that you should start off with, that really depends. If you're going a barbarian that just goes for charisma, then raging intimidation. But otherwise, I would probably say that you should do a sudden charge. Also adrenaline, acute vision will be pretty good if you're trying to pick a fury instinct, then pick acute vision or adrenaline rush probably. And you have something specific in your mind. And you have animal instinct. Animal instinct gives you essentially gives you unarmed attacks, When you pick it, then you pick an animal, which is probably an ape that has just big fists that are just like your fists, but way better. You have bear that has jaws, and also this but all of them are unarmed attacks. And remember, bestial rage. You get the natural weapons of these animals. Remember, if you're picking this one, then probably take like hand wraps of mighty blows. Dragon instinct. You need to pick a dragon and it deals extra damage. Remember, anathemas are not really that important because most GMs don't keep track of them. But this one is the one that you should pick if you want some damage. With animal instinct, you don't really have a lot of, you know, feats that use them. You can pick like animal instinct barbarian. So yeah. Wait a second. Animal instinct. And if you're trying to get like remember with animal fits you need to pick animal instinct. You have with animal instinct, remember you have animal skin for first as a 6th level fit that will allow you to basically have a hide, animal rage that well you will allow you to get an animal form like Biskin does, kind of, but instead of that it works like spell animal form, I think, and then you get Predator's Pounce, which allows you to jump on the prey. So if you want to use this, you need to be unarmored or wearing light armor. So for your armor, for your armor as a barbarian with animal instinct, I usually would recommend hide because it's pretty cheap and efficient, or breastplate for this cool bonus to AC, because you most likely will have like 14 in dexterity and 18 in strength if you start as a barbarian. But out of flight armor, but if you want to light armor, probably you should consider on later levels. You should consider like on later levels when you will be like near level 12, around level 10. I recommend changing to studded leather. Oh wait. I recommend changing to like studded leather. If you want to take this one, Predator Spawns. So yeah, also with Animal Instinct, remember that you cannot use weapons while raging, so remember just like pick your fix. Then with Dragon Instinct, as you can see, with Instinct ability, it focuses on damage. And that's dragon stuff. First of all, you will have a feat, Draconic Arrogance, that allows you to have resistance to mental stuff at essentially like level 1 already. And already level 1, as you can see. Draconic Arrogance. C. +2, bonus to that stuff. And then later, and remember, that one is the most like damage like. It already gives you like basically double the rage damage bonus. So remember, if you over here instead of Animal Instinct, then pick Dragon Instinct. Then you have Draconic Arrogance. Then you have Dragon Breath Rage, which is a pretty cool breath weapon that is kind of like Cobalt has, but the first time you use it, wait, So yeah, and once per hour, it gets boosted. Dragon Wings, yeah, essentially, you take Knowfall damage, and you can fly. And Dragon Transformation allows you to basically have 6th level dragon form. And whenever you use that specific action that also works like rage. It's essentially just rage, but doesn't give you the but doesn't like but doesn't like give you the minuses, you know. And going back to this, remember, if you're going barbarian, then probably just play. Then probably the best armor is hide for you, and the best weapon for you will be probably either a great axe or a great sword. Pretty much any to hand. Pretty much for weapons, pretty much any like two-handed martial weapon will do it. You know. All hands. See two-hand. If you see like a two-handed, just say two-handed melee martial weapon, then that weapon will be probably pretty good for you. Unless it has a finesse trait. Then it's probably bad. You should essentially, that doesn't even have to be like this. You can pick a katana. As long as it deals at least D10 damage or D12 damage, like one of these, or D10 damage like one of these, then it should be a great weapon for your barbarian. Unless you're playing a throwing barbarian. But I'm not gonna get into this. Then you have Fury Instinct, that essentially is a classic vanilla barbarian. See, you get extra damage at like level 7. And you get essentially just weapon resistance. And to choose to show how basic this is, you don't have an anathema or an instinct ability to show how you're basic. Instead of you just get level 1 barbarian feats. So yeah, if you're playing this, probably just pick Adrenaline Rush or Acute Vision. If you don't have Dark Vision, pick Acute Vision. And if you have Dark Vision, then just pick the the second one. Yeah, as worse. And then Giant Instinct. Well, you can get essentially just better weapons. And if you're using clutch weapons, you get extra damage. Pretty cool. Also, you have resistance to energy bludgeoning damage because most giants are associated with using stuff like clubs and fists to fight, just stomping on people. And a lot of giants are like element related, so that's why also this. So for giant instinct barbarian, as you can see, you essentially have 2 feet. First one essentially just makes you bigger when you rage. The second one just gives you a rage that increases your size. This one essentially just makes this even stronger making instead of you being 2 by 2 like this, which means essentially that you're technically 2 by 2, which is 4 squares. You're usually just like 1 square by 1 square, but now you're 4 squares by 4 squares, so you like 4 times. So in turn, you're like 4 times. I mean, 4 times bigger. You're just 4 times bigger. Let's just say that. And over here, you instead of being 4 times bigger, you become 9 times bigger. Giant launch. Well, you know. Yeah, it allows you to reach farther. So yeah, for this one, just pick a big weapon. As always, just pick a weapon that deals either D12, just pick a weapon that deals at the very least a D10, or has a two-handed property that makes it deal a D10 weapon damage or D12, or deals normally D10 or D12 damage, unless and it's a melee weapon. Spirit Instinct. Yeah, defending yourself. So remember, with Anathema, most people don't look at this, but defending yourself from undead is not literally. Oh yeah. Essentially, over here you have hallucinations and yeah. Also, like Dragon Instinct, it increases your damage, which is pretty good. Which is pretty good, you know. It's not as damageful as like Dragon because it's like gives you 150% extra damage. But you know, you get all of the cool raging stuff, and also remember feats for Spirit Instinct. You get all of the stuff with like ghost touch and stuff like this. Ritual guys and Spirit's Wrath. Remember this guy. This guy is pretty cool for damage, but also for all the stuff like spiritual guide and interferences. With interferences, it makes you a little bit tanky, and with spiritual guides makes you better in roleplay and stuff like that. So yeah, I believe that this one is actually pretty like overall. It's a barbarian that it's all over the place, pretty much. And superstitious instinct is, well, as you can see, superstitious instinct. Um, like the superstitious instinct is just like resistance to magic stuff and cancelling out mages. So yeah, another character from core classes is Bard. Bard has decent HP, expert at perception, expert at will, you know. It's a overall pretty decent, has a decent amount of skills. It's trained in simple weapons and also additional like weapons. And we all know a long sword, a rapier, a sap, short bow, short sword, and a whip. Yeah, we all know it essentially is Kamlan. So it has it's our first spellcaster, and it has an occult spell list. which makes it pretty weird. But you know, with all of the stuff that also bards have in the background, it makes bards pretty good supports. Occult list is a pretty good support list, and you should definitely consider using it. So yeah, you have Enigma, which is essentially kind of like the spy guy. Maestro is the roleplay guy. Polymath, well, you can see it's like the jack of all trades guy. And warrior guy is like, you know, the combat like guy. But most important thing about bard is that you need to use inspire courage every turn. For one action, you get all allies in the area plus one bonus to attack rolls, damage rolls, and saves against fear effects. Remember, do it every turn. Do it every turn. Your first action should be to inspire courage, unless you're like in a big battle and 60-foot emanation is not enough to capture all your allies. Then acceptable is if you just move as your first action and then inspire courage. So yeah, remember, just always inspire courage as often as you can. Also, we have a decent amount of spell slots, mostly for occult spells, which are kind of a support spells. So yeah. Also, key ability is called Charisma. As I said before, all the stuff light armor. So yeah, now champion. Champion is a pretty cool class because it's the only class that will ever get legendary proficiencies in heavy armor. That will ever get legendary proficiency with heavy armor. It's pretty cool. Either use the strength or dexterity, but you know, unless you're a paladin, there's like no use of using dexterity as a champion usually. You have a decent amount of HP. You have okay you have just normal perception. Your experts are both in fortitude and will, just like barbarian. And you start trained with religion and your deity skill, and then you have 2+ intelligence modifier. So yeah, essentially you have like one more skill, even though it shows like you have less skills than normal, but you have one extra skill, so you have average amount of skills. You have weapons up to martial, and you have all of the defenses, which at the end of the game you will be legendary in armor, which will make you a real guy. And train in champion classes and in divine spell attacks and DC. So yeah, champion is one of the hybrid casters, but over here you need to first check your champion's code. So yeah, let's start with anti-paladin, or not really. So basically, paladin, redeemer, and liberator are the good champions. You know, the good alignment, which are chaotic good, lawful good, and also neutral good, respectively. Liberator will allow you to have a bunch of movement and stuff like that. Paladin will essentially protect its allies by not only giving the resistance but also counter-attacking. And Redeemer will be the best guy for defense. for the evil pala, so essentially all of the good guys, the reactions will be special reactions that you can only use to help your allies. For evil paladins, your reactions will only be used to like hinder enemies, you know? Like with anti-paladin, it will just basically destroy everything and get the destructive vengeance reaction. And well, as you can see, it already, yeah, it deals damage. Okay, with Desecrator, you have Selfish Shield, which will just defend yourself, which kind of, you know, um, you will also increase your damage against the enemy. And also Tyrant, which will just try to like stop the enemy by forcing it into like submission. Or if they won't like kneel before him, then they will get like mental damage. I'm also like working on like neutral champions that basically as this focus on evil champions focus on dealing damage to enemies, good champions on protecting their allies, the neutral champions will protect themselves usually. They will have like they will have stuff like selfish shield. Selfish shield is pretty close to. It's the closest we have to a neutral champion reaction. But yeah, most of them will be just like good champion reactions, but on yourself instead of enemies, on yourself instead of allies. So yeah, depending on what type of spell you choose, because you see, we already focus spells only appeared right now, because if you're, for example, picking a paladin cause, then you will have a lay on hand spell. It gives positive energy, aka heals allies, heals living creatures, and deals damage to undead. But if you, for example, change your paladin into a tyrant, you will get in touch of corruption, which, well, it works pretty much the same, but heals undead and deals damage to good creatures. Touch of corruptions, as you can see, is for all of the evil options that were added in like advanced player's guide, and lay on hands is for all the good options. And by good I don't mean like they're good in the game specifically, I just mean that they're good in alignment. So yeah, then you have the cleric, pretty decent, has wisdom, pretty decent health, an okay perception, and it experts in will. Also, have the same is the same in skills as champion, and has just weapons up to simple, and a special weapon, and a special weapon, depending on the deity. You don't have armor training and anything, but it's kind of weird. For example, you start off with a phone, so you gain a bunch of extra spell slots that you can only use to cast heal if you have healing font, or harm if you have the harmful font. But I'm gonna go with heal. Heal essentially works like with champion stuff. Heals allies and heals living creatures and deals damage to undead, and harm the reverse. Doctrine, then you have either cloistered cleric, which allows you to be a better spellcaster. For example, at the start, you gain domain innate for free. Yeah. which essentially allows you to pick one domain and then you will get a cool spell. As I said with champions before, oh yeah, I forgot to give weapon recommendations for the rest of them. So yeah, with Bard you don't really need any weapons, but I will probably tell you to, like, depending on your subclass, pick whatever you want. Champion, then you should probably like get a shield and a weapon and a one-handed weapon that deals d8 damage, like, you know, bastard sword, or a longsword. But longsword would be probably better. Or you can like change into an axe as long as it deals, like, I don't know, around d8 of damage, then it should be okay. With cleric, you know, you can choose this and then get extra spell and be better with spells. And then you can also choose war priest, that instead of that will give you proficiencies with medium armor, you know, with light and medium armor, and still you will probably choose like a weapon for your. So yeah, even if if you really want, you can get like the best probably deity and get the Hellbard, our Lord and Savior, and here you have heal. So in order to show you, essentially, I'm gonna just pick Amnesiac as a background over here. And over here you have 1, because we don't have anything in Charisma. We have +0 to Charisma, that, you know, probably if you want, if you like want to, then play a War Priest, then this should be essentially what you take. It should look about like, oh no, not dexterity. So dexterity, you should choose charisma. That's what your character should look like. And yeah, then you start with like 3 of these heal spells bonus that you have. And you know, with your level, they are not right now at level 1. And at level 20 they will be at level 10. So yeah, they also like grow with you. But remember, since your cleric is so fragile, then you should probably at the second level, if you're playing a war priest, because then you will have to like probably invest in strength if you want to have a good war priest, and you won't be able to invest in dexterity then. Then what you should do is at second level, try to pick up the Sentinel dedication. Even if your armor then gives you debuffs, it essentially gives you +3 to dexterity saving throws, but it only gives you debuffs to both athletics and acrobatics. So unless you pick these skills, then it should be the best course of action you pick. For weapons, depending, for a war priest, I honestly think that you should pick your deity's favorite weapon. And also for like the normal cleric, for cloister's cleric, I mean. And you know, always the domain and stuff like that. It's just up to you. I think depending on what kind of character you wanna play, but for weapons, yeah, just pick your deity's favorite weapon. If the weapon is two-handed or has the two-hand property, then you should just pick this weapon and pick additionally a shield if you want to, if that weapon is one-handed. So yeah, core. Then for druid is probably my favorite class. With skills, it uses wisdom, has a pretty normal amount of health, just trained in perception, just trained in will. Only expert in will, and skills are pretty similar to cleric. Has just simple weapons, has armor up to medium, and stuff like that. So how is it different from a cleric? For first, it has a primal list, which is my favorite list, and has all of the cool stuff with its orders. So you want to play with a pet, animal order. You want to do a lot of damage, flame order. You want to be a healer, leaf order. You want to once again do a bunch of damage, but this time just more damage and less because with flame order you have like crowd control with a bit of damage. Over here with leaf order you have like healing and stuff like that. With stone order you have just straight up damage. With stone order you kind of have damaging stuff also. With wave order you have a lot of utility spells, and with wild order you have spells that will you get spell, basically just one spell which is called wild shape that will allow you to be a good tank by changing into animals. So yeah, at the first free level you have both wild morph, which allows you to just get unarmed attacks and stuff like that, and the wild shape that allows you to turn into animal. And normally you can just turn into a pest with pest form and level 3. And at level 3 you can use animal form stuff. But you know. Also at further levels you can pick a thing that is called Order Explorer. You pick that, you pick another order. Animal order. And now you get animal companion. Not only you can get your not only you have so much utility with every option, because you already have a primal spell list that is the spell list that has essentially all of the it has both lightning bolt and fireball, so it has like the damage output of the arcane list. It has a bunch of cool utility spells, just like the occult list, and it has healing stuff like the divine spell list. So it's basically the spell list that gives you the most options. And the reason I love Pathfinder so much is because it's the system that probably gives you the most options out of all of the systems, while becoming while still being balanced. Because right now every option is pretty much equally good, and right now instead of growing just stronger with everything, you gain more options. So now not only am I a tank, but I'm also a puppeteer with animal order. And 4th level, what can I do? Another order explorer. And now I can just lean into a healer. And also I get a Leshy familiar additionally, which will be able to turn into a healing bomb essentially later. Once again, another order explorer. No, but also I can do 1,000 faces, which will allow me to change into other humanoids, turn into other humanoids with just wild order. So wild order not only gives you tanking abilities, but also wild shape. And remember, these are focus spells, so their limits are essentially limits how often can you use them per combat, rather than just per day. Because if you have a break from combat, then you probably just will get your focus points back. So yeah, remember that. and and as you can see, you have out of combat for humanoid shape, insect shape, to be able to just turn to just turn into all of this stuff to spy. Later you have even like soaring shape. You have all this cool stuff. Like wow, this is just amazing how much abilities you get from Wild Order, and every order is good. Only problem with Wild Order, is that pretty much every single ability you get for a wild shape takes like takes a feat from you, you know. But it is not really that bad because, well, wild shape takes 1 minute, and usually, um, which is not like one IRL minute. It's like 10 turns, and 10 turns is a lot. It's quite a lot, you know. And you will also have form control as level 4. That if you have a decent amount of strength, we will be able to turn into the animals for a longer amount of time. That's just wow. You know? If you have all of this stuff, then you have infinite versatility. But each one of these costs feats. And druid feats, almost all of the druid feats are really, really good. So, druid has most options and most amazing options. Like, out of like classes that you could make an entire team out of, only classes that can do this are pretty much just thaumaturge and druid, I think, and maybe clerics if you just pick both cloistered clerics and war priests. But you know, war priest and cloistered cleric, even though they are the same class, they really aren't. They change a lot. They just have the same feats pretty much for most of the stuff, and same like little mechanic. They share like one mechanic, and yeah, druid, for everything, druid is probably like the most versatile class together with thaumaturge. But we're not gonna talk about thaumaturge in this video because for now I'm just recording for core classes, and then I'm going to record a separate video for all the other classes. So right now, fighter. Yeah, fighter is both strength. Oh yeah, also forgot to tell you armor. You probably, since you have wisdom as a druid, you don't really need charisma, so you can invest all of the charisma stuff into like dexterity. So this should be your stats at the start. Maybe, just maybe, if you're not playing like a humanoid that has amnesiac background, if you're not playing a thing that has two boosts with amnesiac background, then you should have like 8 instead of one of these 10s. You should have 8 in intelligence or charisma, and the rest of the stats are just like this. So yeah, you have like, then you are beast like this, you know. You have also a decent amount of strength, so you know, a staff will deal a decent amount of damage. And also, like, if you use also the free archetype variant rule, then you can get like some cool weapons for your druid also. So just remember, druid is one of classes that never ceases to amaze you. There are like 3 classes that never cease to amaze me. Though that's not really all that true, because thaumaturge, in one specific area, is a little bit of a letdown, but druid, oh, that's the stuff. So fighter, fighter either uses strength or dexterity, whether or not, depending on whether you want to use like your melee weapons which should either be a great, which should mostly, I mean, fighter is pretty much the most versatile, the most like, I know that I throw the most versatile class pretty much everywhere on every class, but I want to say that fighter is like one of the most versatile classes in terms of classes that are just purely martial. It's the class that has the best ratio of versatility and easiness to play, because fighters are simple. You just hit stuff really accurately. That's all there is to fighters, and also your critical hits. You hit stuff very accurately, so you get a lot of crits, and your critical hits also have a little bonuses. So that's really cool. And depending, and I'm saying that they're pretty versatile, because they have so many feats, and they learn, and despite not having like any subclass really, because they technically have a subclass, because they choose one weapon group where, and in that one specific weapon group, they are better at that specific weapon group than other weapons, you know. And that's pretty much like kind of their subclass, but they just pick a weapon group. But most of their feats that they have are for melee weapons, so yeah. Fighter, you can apply this to fighter, to pretty much any fighter. I said fighter too much, but that depends on what kind of fighter you wanna play. The feats you will choose will depend on that, and weapons also. So, if you wanna play a fighter that has both a shield that uses a shield, then other shield grip won't be really good. But and combat assessment also probably not really, because they're not really that cool, I think. But double slice is one of the feats that you should choose. If you're playing a fighter that has two melee weapons, then double slice will be the best one. It doesn't need to be like slashing damage. It doesn't need to be a slashing damage or piercing damage to slice enemies. It can be any type of damage, even like two maces. Also for like bow fighters, if you wanna have a fighter with bow, pretty cool. Just pick this one, and now with ranged weapon, if someone gets close to you, you can hit them pretty good. If you're playing a fighter that uses just one weapon, that most likely is just like one two-handed weapon, or one weapon that has two-hand property, just a weapon that deals a d10 or a d12 of damage, then you probably want to have a power attack. And for the people that would usually just pick the other shield grip, then instead of that, it's better to pick reactive shield, in my opinion. Oh yeah, also Everstand stance. You technically grab your with you brace your shield with both hands. So yeah, you just brace it with both hands, but you don't need to hold it with two hands. So for the guy with that could choose other shield grip, Everstand stats will be the best. But if you're also like mostly playing a fighter just to like hit stuff, but you just hold a shield as like a specific thing. You're holding a shield as, you know, just a little thing that you want to do just in case, you want to have it just in case. Then reactive shield will be better. Also, if you're playing a fighter that purposely just uses either a katana or a bastard sword, then the best way, then and you're just holding this, you can just, I think that it doesn't cost any actions. You can just like, you technically it's two-handed, so you choose like whether or not you want to use one hand or two hands before each attack. At least that's how I understand it. So you technically can just, without using any action, just let go of your katana with one hand and then use it. So if you're going to use like just one weapon that has a two-handed property, then snagging strike is for you. And these are just like first level feats. Also for this, if you wanna be like support like fighter, then you can also choose this. You can do this if you're trying to like if you're trying also the same guy that can use power attack. If you're trying to be like more of a tank guy, then you can have like your Everstand stance. You can have your like Everstand stance, and you just it's pretty cool because you can just like move to enemy, strike, and then just cover yourself with a shield. Or if you're already near an enemy, because mostly you will be probably wanting to be like a tank or a support, then you can do an intimidating strike and then hide behind a shield. Because you also have a shield block for free as a fighter. So yeah, you can just do this because if enemy is frightened, not only your allies will have, essentially, because the enemy will have -1 to all of the DCs they have and all of the rolls they have. Essentially -2 to every stat, so it's essentially -1 to every modifier, technically. Which is pretty cool. Then not only it makes it so your allies will have a easier time to hit them, but also they will have -1 to hitting you. Plus also you get +2 from like doing your shield thing. And also you increase the shield's hardness by 2. So even if they hit you or critically hit you, you can easily block it. And later you will be able to also pick additional reactions like this. Oh yeah, also cool thing. You need, it says trained in acrobatics and medium armor, so rules as written, you can do this, you can do a flip in in heavy armor, as long as you have training in medium armor at least. So yeah, that's essentially the fighter and the sheer insanity while everyone loves fighter. And also the fighter can choose between these skills that the fighter has, and starts off with 3 skills, so pretty cool. From further core guys, this is the second cool guy, like among spellcasters the druid is the cool guy. Monk is also a pretty cool guy, Fighter is a pretty cool guy, I say, because, fighter gets fits for every playstyle. So it's kind of like a fighter, but Monk is cool because Monk is cool. So let me show you. You just have stronger fists, and you don't have your non-lethal stuff. But also monks are also pretty versatile. At the very start, you can pick a stance. You can pick like already. You can pick like a key spells that will allow you to essentially just be kind of a spellcaster. You have all of these stances that essentially just make you have a weapon. That also, for example, over here you have +2 to athletics checks to climb. See? Also, you ignore difficult first square of difficult terrain if you're a dragon while striding. You can jump better with crane, so pretty much every single one of these stances gives you essentially not only you have like an you're already don't need armor, don't need weapons, but also you have these things that essentially function just like weapons, but also give you a specific thing. Also, you can have um, I can also gain a monastic archer stance. Monastic archer stance, so you know. So you can do archer stuff. You can also have monastic weaponry, so you can use normal weapons. All of this stuff gives you stances that allow you to get all of the cool stuff. Mountain stance that essentially makes you tanky. If you're trying to get a strength based monk, then this one makes you really tanky. Additionally, dragon stance also is for strength based monks. And all of the stuff over here is really cool. All the stances are really cool. You can also have monastic weaponry to like do all of the to get all of the monk weapons and do like key strike and key rush for like spells. So you can be a kind of a spellcaster. You will also have all of the acrobatic stuff, guarded movement, which is pretty cool. And also, since you don't really need weapons or armor as a monk, you can essentially, if you're a DM or you're a player, then you can essentially make a monster out of it, you know? You can reflavor all of this stuff as just a monster or something. It would be really cool, you know? Especially if you like dual classing, but we're not getting to dual classing right now. And also, if you do choose spells, then you get to choose whether or not you want divine or cool spells. And what does it change? Literally nothing. It doesn't change anything, but it just allows you to choose it for flavor, and you have extra attacks. So yeah, over here, as a monk, you can play a monster class, and already monks have a pretty good HP, you know, and are expert in all saving throws. And also, whenever you get, but you know, they don't have weapons unless you actually pick the monastic weaponry thing, or you pick the monastic archer stance. Then normally, at like level 7, when you should get like your first save, you know, you can pick your save that you want to increase the amount of, you know, the bonus of, you know. At level 11, once again, you can pick your second save, and at third, you can pick your third save. So you will end up with the higher saving throws with 2 master saving throws and 1 legendary saving throw. Only guys that are second to you are rogue and barbarian in terms of saving throws, because rogue has like legendary in dexterity, and then it has like I think master in will and expert in fortitude, while barbarian has legendary in fortitude, master in will and expert in reflex. So yeah, that's why I think that monks are really cool. And also you'll be able to literally just stretch your arms. stretch your arms to defy logic. Do all of the stuff. See, as a monk you can play like a monster with skills, you can play a technical spellcaster, you can play a melee DPS, you can play a brawler, you can play a ranged guy, and also you have and also you can fuse two stances, like you can fuse both like the bow stance with some other stance that you have, for example Iron Blood stance, and then you can both shoot enemies with a bow, and if they get close to you then just punch them really strong. And also you can get the golden body, which will essentially mean you don't really need a cleric, because you gain 20 HP every turn. Oh yeah, it's 14.91 kilowatts. Really cool. Yeah, that's kind of funny. And yeah, essentially out of battle you will regain 20 HP every 6 seconds. So yeah, your like healer doesn't even need to like spend its heals on you, That's really cool. Especially if you're an undead, you know. Or you're in a team of undead and you yourself are not undead. So yeah, that's pretty cool. That's why I like monks really much. Ranger allows you to essentially sorry for the sound. I needed to like move myself, and then I just kind of hit the table with my knee. I'm in insufferable pain. So yeah, same as always, dexterity or strength above average hit points. But you have expert in perception, really perceptive, expert in fortitude, reflex, and just trained in will. Be trained in nature survival and also for skills, which is pretty good. Weapons are up to martials, and the armor up to like up to medium. So oh yeah, also for as I said, for fighter you don't really have any specific armor, but depending on what you choose, if you're playing like a fighter with a lot of strength, you can like choose a heavy armor, and if you're playing like dexterity based armor, then pick some light armor. For monk, no weapons, no armor, unless you like pick monastic weaponry, then just pick whatever you want in monastic weaponry. So with ranger, you have hunt prey action that which just allows you designate one enemy, and you have bonus to seek the enemy and bonus to survival checks to track the enemy and stuff like that. But yeah, that's pretty stupid. Because how does it help you in combat? Well, you can pick a flurry ranger. That means that if you hunt the prey, if you hunt your prey, then normally you have like -5 to attack on the second attack, and now you will have -3 to attack. And agile weapon, which is normally that just reduces the minuses you get from multi-epital attack penalty by 1 over here. So yeah, as you can see, and that even further lowers it. So if you're playing agile weapon, 3 strikes in a row will just give you -2 if you're having an agile weapon as your second weapon. Yeah, that's kind of funny to me. So yeah, Outwit. Well, gives you better deception checks, intimidation checks, and stealth checks, so you can fear your enemy, and bonus to 1 AC. So yeah, this one is more of a tank because you know all of the deception and stuff, all of the intimidation stuff mm, brings out to like you know fear, which will essentially decrease their attack even further. So flurry is just spam attack, and outwit is you know just more of that. And precision just deals extra damage. So especially if you're dealing using weapons that deal a small amount of damage, one that essentially just okay. So flurry is for guys that essentially usually use two weapons. That's what who flurry is for. Outwit is for essentially the guys that want to play tank, and precision is for guys that want to play ranger at range. You know. Pretty standard stuff, I think. So yeah, just like druid, you can get an animal companion and all of this stuff. So yeah, out of that, you should either choose animal companion or haunted shot, in my opinion. And for weapons, that all depends on you. If you're taking a flurry ranger, then out of weapons, I recommend that you pick like one martial weapon. Mm, that that one like D8 like one of these weapons over here. One of these weapons that you have over here as your first weapon. If you're playing either flurry ranger or you're playing outwit ranger, then pick one of these weapons. But the difference between them is that if you play if you're playing a flurry ranger, then also mm, you want some random weapon that has an agile trait. Some random weapon that has an agile trait, but probably not finesse. Most likely, I'm wondering if there's not. So, yeah, one of these weapons that you saw before, and one of these weapons over here that you have in the second hunt. So you can make the first attack with the first weapon, and the other two attacks with that weapon that you have over here. Or if you're like level 17 and higher, then first two attacks with the first weapon and one attack with that weapon. Yeah, Ranger focuses on attacking single bosses. But if you're trying to pick an outwit Ranger, then your second hand, instead of having that weapon, should probably have a shield, so you can further cover yourself. Or if you don't really want a shield, then you should probably pick a two-handed weapon. You should pick some two-handed weapon that probably just has like a, I don't know, like pirate trait maybe. I think it's called pirate trait. Like most likely either a war lance or bow staff. So yeah. To just block yourself with that weapon. or have one of the weapons that I told you before about, the single-handed weapons. And then also a weapon that, you know, and that, well, one of the weapons I told you before about an shield, or one of the weapons that have a parry trait. Yeah, really. I'm drinking tea, by the way. And if you're playing, and if you're, you know, playing a ranger, and if you're playing a ranger, you know, a ranger that has the precision, then I recommend that you should pick probably a composite longbow, because, you know, ranger just usually uses dexterity. You probably choose constitution and one of the strength or dexterity, and then like wisdom. So you would probably, either way, even if you're picking a dexterity based ranger, which precision should be a dexterity based ranger, then either composite longbow or composite shortbow should be a great addition. I think that composite shortbow would be even kind of better, usually because in most circumstances you just need 60 feet of range, unless you're fighting. So you should, just in case, pick both of these. But if you're for some reason just putting your points into intelligence or charisma instead of strength, then I'm not hating you. Then pick just normal longbow or normal shortbow. You can also try to pick the repeating heavy crossbow with your stuff, but you know, it has reload 1, and you know, all of these stuff like this have reload 0, aka you can use hunted shot with them, which will be pretty cool. But you know, it's your character. And then later, if you're playing a ranger, then if you're trying to have a pet, then probably either precision or outwit will be good. If you have a pet, you know, fighting alongside you, you have an animal companion. Flurry won't be really good for that, because you will be spamming most of the time. And for defense and weapons, then, well, I think that the best armor will be hide, and I already told you about weapons. Also, just like both monk and champion, ranger can also learn spells. For example, if you choose over here like gravity weapon or something, then you will have a focus spell gravity weapon. Yeah, it's one of not many martial casters. So basically there are, like, you know, classes. There are pure martials. There are martial casters, aka martials that can only use like spellcaster stuff. There are hybrid that there are martial casters, aka martials that can use focus points, focus spells, and also there are like hybrid casters that have both focus spells and normal spell slots, but have a limited amount of spell slots compared to other casters, but also have a capability of defending themselves, aka Magus and Summoner. And then also there are the last, and also there are just pure spellcasters also. So yeah, I hope that actually helps you. Then there's also Rogue, which Rogue, as you can see, has a lot of abilities, even though I have like +0 to intelligence right now. Rogue has so many abilities. Also, not only that, but as you can see, Rogue has a skill fit at level 1. rogue, instead of having a skill feat, every even level has a skill feat every level, you know? And you have a rogue racket. You have either Eldritch Trickster that gives you a dedication to any spellcasting class, you know, dedication fit to any of the spellcasting classes. But you need to like have a dedication to the spellcasting class first. You need to meet prerequisites in terms of abilities for that also. But you can have just a bunch of spellcasting stuff for free, like a bunch of cantrips for free, and then you can expand on it with essentially one less step. Mastermind that will allow you to recall knowledge. It will make enemies flat-footed, which will be really good for you. Ruffian Racket that allows you to essentially use weapons that are not like dexterity based. Will allow you to play a strength based rogue over here, while that one is intelligence based mostly. This one will be like a scoundrel, which is like a politician. Quite literally, every Polish politician ever. Will allow you to feign the enemy, aka lie to the enemy, to get advantage in combat. Okay, once again, Polish politicians. And a thief racket, which Polish people in general. Yeah, the Irish trickster, Polish people that move out of the country. Mastermind racket, Polish people that just essentially earn outside of the country. Ruffian racket, essentially just Polish people on the street. There's essentially more Polish people and thief for Polish people. Yeah, I'm Polish. I'm allowed to make this joke. So yeah, you can add dexterity to your damage rolls instead of strength, which is the only way you can actually do this. So yeah, just Thief Racket is the most important one. You get a surprise attack, so you know. During the first round, if creatures haven't acted, they're flat-footed to you. And cleric. Okay, you add extra 1d6 damage. You deal extra 1d6 damage to flat-footed enemies. Okay, your scoundrel and your mastermind allows you to just flat-foot enemies, so you can deal sneak attack damage to them, which is pretty cool. And yeah, from class feats, you can see there are a bunch of like, you know, depending, all of skills that you have are dependent on your skill feats, but mostly or rackets and stuff like that. Just remember, your rogue is supposed to be versatile. Play your rogue however you want. And well, just remember, I'm Polish. I'm allowed to make jokes about Polish people. Our economy is a train wreck, so that's the only thing I can do to cope. Yeah, oh yeah, also, it's one of the classes that has specific weapons outside of simple weapons. Just light armor, unless you're a ruffian, then also medium armor. You have a lot of skills. You can have pretty much any ability instead of Constitution as your main one. You have a decent HP and expert in perception, which out of all of the classes, only Rogue and Ranger have legendary in perception at the max level. Same with like defense for monk and champion, but you know, monk cannot wear armor. No, sorcerer. Charisma key ability score. Very little HP. train in perception, just training in perception, expert in will, and not much skills. Simple weapons, no armor, and spellcasting, which will be both the case for sorcerer and wizard. All of this stuff is both for sorcerer and wizard, except wizard has a little bit less health and uses intelligence instead of charisma. And is locked into just arcane spells. But sorcerer, if you wanna be a spellcaster, that's the easiest way to start. You pick one of all of these things. Yeah, I know that's a lot. And then you get your spells. For example, over here, if you use spells associated with your bloodline, you get this little cool thing that is called blood magic. Bloodline spells are just spells that you learn for free. I mean, bloodline spells are the spells that you learn with focus points. And you have granted spells, aka spells that you get for free. And bloodline spells are the spells that activate your blood magic. You get also training in 2 skills over here, intimidation and occultism in terms of aberrations. And you get occult spell list. As I said, occult spell list is the spell list that is pretty weird. Has all of the weird utility stuff. And aberrant is essentially about aliens and stuff like that, you know. Angelic is, you know, angels. Diplomacy and religion and divine spell list, aka all of the healing stuff. Demonic, divine, once again, like, why do demons have divine? Because divine is just associated with religion, you know. Occult is associated with space, and also all of the unexplained phenomena, you know. Supernatural stuff. Occult is supernatural. Arcane is just like magic that you learn. Essentially, arcane is American magic because, you know, it pretty much has no healing because, you know, just no healthcare joke because I'm European. I need to make this joke at least once in my life. Once a month. Or there will be like giant consequences. So yeah, demonic is from demons, aka all of the evil fire monkeys. Diabolic is from devils, because you see, over here you have intimidation and religion, and here you have deception and religion. And devils are the guys that are essentially just car salesmen, pretty much. Like crypto people and car salesmen. That's what the devils are. They're just like meant to like deceive you into doing stuff. AKA car salesmen, crypto investors, Andrew Tate, Draconic. You have arcane spell list because dragons are arcane creatures. You have arcana and intimidation. So yeah, very cool. And similarly to barbarian, you can choose like one of the specific types. And arcane, you know, no health, zero healthcare magic, essentially. Oh yeah, primal is all of the natural stuff. Also, forgot to tell you that. And now we have all of the spell list covered. So yeah, elemental is primal, so the best spell is pretty much intimidation and nature. And you can choose type of your elemental. Also, for Fae, once again, primal, so the best one of the stuff. And elemental, you know, elementals are elementals, draconic are dragons, and Fae are all of the fairies and stuff like that. You know, it doesn't really need to be like a fairy specifically. It can be like a, I don't know, like dark forest monkey. Pretty much anything that you will see in a fairy tale, you know. All of the stuff all of the magical stuff that you will see in a fairy tale. Yes, including that German one. Pretty much except like Baba Yagas. Because these are hags and they are separate things. Over here you have the thing that is Arcana and Deception for genies. And you have Arcane Spell List. So yeah, Genie is all of the air stuff. Efriti is all of the fire stuff. Jani is just like random stuff, you know, just a mix of all of these. There's Marid for all of the water stuff and Shaitan for all of the air stuff. Hags are essentially just mischievous grandmas, you know. Just if grandmas had YouTube prank channels, then that would be what we would call them. That's essentially it. Except right now they have like curse stuff. And yeah, Imperial is essentially a wizard probably. Just it's 90%. I'm 90% sure that it's a wizard. Like just your descendant was either a wizard or a descendant of your ancestor was either a descendant of a wizard or was either a wizard or a descendant of a wizard. So yeah, you have a wizard in your ancestors. Someone who mastered magic, but come here. It's arcane. It's just locked into arcane spell list. That is only the case for maguses and wizards, and maguses are basically just wizards that were sick of just not using weapons. Nymph, primal, forest spirits and stuff like that. Pretty cool. They are pretty and stuff like that. Phoenix, yeah, very cool. I'm playing a Phoenix sorcerer in a campaign that I'm playing in. My friend is running that. We're like a part of a guild. And sorry for that. Not only my family but also police needs to interrupt me. Very cool. Now that you have, Phoenix, you know what a Phoenix is. It focuses on both dealing damage and healing at once, because it has like the move that works similarly to Burning Hands, but it deals less damage. But the people in the area, if there are enemies, they are hurt, and if they're allies, then they are healed. Psychopomp, these are essentially the guys from the graveyard. And by the graveyard, I mean essentially just Purgatory, pretty much. Like the Purgatory version of Pathfinder's version of Purgatory. Shadow. Yeah. You have some spooky thing in your blue line. This one, Undead, it sounds really bad, that some of your family members were already dead, essentially. When they bred, they were already dead. That's essentially what it means. Yeah, it sounds bad. Anyways, Shadow is occult, forgot to tell you. Psychopomp is divine, and this one is also divine, but that is not as bad as it sounds. Powerful death. You probably just died and returned, or it was a vampire, maybe. Like a vampire, one of these like not disgusting undead, but more of the hot undead. and Wind Blast. So yeah, just like um, Draconic, but instead of you just pray to a worm, and pretty much the same thing as Draconic. See, literally the same thing as Draconic, but instead you have Divine Spell List. Pretty much. See, Dragon Claws, literally the same thing that the Draconic Sorcerer has. This is basically the same thing, but a different spell list. So yes, Sorcerer can have any spell list it wants. Oh yeah. I don't really need to recommend any weapons, but you know, I think that I should recommend spells for spellcasters. So for sorcerer, for like all the spellcasters, I recommend that you use like that you have like 1 or 2 damaging spells, and 2 spells that just sound like cool stuff. Prestidigitation is a very good spell, in my opinion. It allows you to do all of the cool stuff, you know. Um, you can pick like Divine Lance or something. Um, but I recommend that you pick like Prestidigitation. I mean, I don't really in no place to do that, but you know, if you're in like Arcane or Primal, then probably choose like Electric Arc, and then whatever sounds cool to you. And then if you're in Occult or Divine, then probably just like pick like Days. Just like pick Days and whatever sounds cool to you. You know. That's pretty much that. If you want my like spell stuff that I can't tell you today, so thus far. And for the wizard, um, wizard is similar to sorcerer, but instead of that you have like a bonded item. I already told you what the wizard does. Once again, like I don't know if I told you, but they're prepared with alchemist. I think I told you that they're prepared. See, that one prepares spells. At the start of every day, you have all of your spell lists, but first you need to learn them. Just because you're a wizard, then you need to learn them. That's the difference. But most of them don't need to learn them, and then just they pick spells at the start of the day and use them like, for example, like food they already had prepared, just like preparing them like food. And I want to eat a Whopper, then just you eat a Whopper or something. You already used up a Whopper, then you have no more Whopper, even if you have like the spell slot of the same level. But with spontaneous you have a limited amount of spell slots. You have also spell slots, but you can use them on any weapon spells that you know, but you know way less spells. You need to learn. So first, Arcane School. So yeah, Abjuration. You gain like a bunch of spells and stuff like that. You can learn. You can read the stuff if you want. So with Abjuration is basically defense. Conjuration is essentially summoning creatures and items. Divination, you see into the future and stuff like that. You see into the future. You see through lies and read minds. Enchantment, you basically control things like either telekinesis or just mind reading stuff. Basically, the Force from Star Wars. Evocation, you make things go boom, like you know, throwing a ball of fire that explodes, or like shooting a lightning laser. Illusion, you know what it means, just like making things that are not really real. Necromancy, aka manipulating life and death, aka all of them summoning undead. All of the summoning undead, and also healing, but Here it is just summoning undead with wizard. Transmutation. You transform some. You turn one thing into another thing. Yep. Once again, there's some sort of like ambulance going through my street. Yep. That's my life. Anyways, there's also universalist that doesn't get a specific spell, but you usually just get additional spell slot that is locked into us. That is locked into something. With universalist, you get a bunch of cool stuff, and with, for example, transmutation, you get additional like spell slots for stuff. With pretty much everything except universalist, you get additional spell slots, but you get like special effects with universalist if you drain your wounded item with spells. Improved familiar attunement. Yeah. Essentially, you get like familiar stuff for free. Metamagical experimentation. You gain metamagic feats. Extra metamagic feats, aka feats. You use one more action. You normally most spells cost you like one action, but instead of that, you can use like fireball for free for two actions, and normally you just throw it, and it has like 20. It like bursts 20 20 feet burst, and you can just use 3 actions instead of that to just get 25 feet burst. Spell blending that allows you to just like mix 2 spell slots into 1 spell slot that is 2 levels higher than the spell slots you traded for. And also you can do that in reverse to trade spell slots for additional cantrips. Spell substitution that will allow you to basically sit in place and just change up your spell. Though I personally think that all of this stuff is just kind of boring except spell blending. And over here, I think that you should, instead of that, essentially, you can make it so you can spend 1 focus point. For example, you can use your reaction or free action to spend 1 focus point, or just make it a focus spell as a focus spell, and essentially just focus spell for 1 action. Or maybe like like a focus spell for 1 action that allows you to essentially for 1 action using a focus point change one of your spells into a change one of your spells into another spell. And Staff Nexus essentially allows you to make a bootleg staff, but we don't get into staffs into this. So yeah, Wizard gets like a bunch of that meta magic stuff I told you about and stuff like that, except one thing that is different is that you're bound by your spellbook. Yeah, that's pretty much the only difference that you have. Yeah, that kind of sucks, I know. So, yeah. Of course, both sorcerer and wizard are spellcasters, so they don't really need any weapons. They will probably just use staffs. And they cannot even wear armor, so that's kind of pointless. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all classes, I think. And I hope that my answers satisfied you guys. And now you have a better idea of what class do you want to choose. signing off, I guess. Let's try Spanish. Ciao. Oh wait, no, that's French.